Hello, good morning and welcome to the 2024 Retina UK Professionals Conference. I'm Lauren Osborne-Lewis and I'm one of your hosts for today. It's wonderful to have you here with us today, whether you're in person or joining us online. I wanted to start off today by saying thank you to our sponsors, Johnson & Johnson and RNIB Vision, whose contribution has made this conference possible. Before we get started, I need to cover a couple of housekeeping points, some of which won't apply to our remote attendees, so please just bear with me. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, there is going to be a test of the alarm. When this happens, we do not need to exit the room or carry out a fire drill. They're simply just testing it. However, if the alarm is to ring outside of this time, please exit the hotel through the nearest exit. The assembly point is up the ramp at the side of the hotel. Retina UK and Pendulum staff will be there to help you and guide you. Kelly, our photographer, will be capturing moments throughout the day. If you prefer not to have your photo taken, please do come and find me, or you can just grab my attention throughout the sessions, and I can let Kelly know. And also, if you change your mind throughout the day, we can let her know as well. You may have already noticed as you're walking around the space, but we are using NaviLens for the first time this year for signage. It's free and easy to use. Setting up is really simple. You just head to the NaviLens website and press download now. When the app then opens, you need to hold your phone near the NaviLens icon. The camera will capture the tag and give you the information that's contained in it. So we have codes dotted around the spaces. For example, we've got one for the exhibition space, the lifts, registration desk, and the toilets. The toilets are accessed in the corridor you will have just walked through from the exhibition space. You just need to leave this room, turn right, and they are directly on your left. There is a male, female, and accessible toilets. For those of you that are in the room today, refreshments are available in the Pioneer Room, which is our exhibition space, the one you've just come from. Again, you access that by exiting this room and turning right and following the corridor all the way round. In this room, you'll also find many exhibition stands. Please do take some time today to visit the stands during the breaks. There's also complimentary Wi-Fi. You just need to go onto Wi-Fi and press Pendulum Guest and create a guest account. We encourage you to share your thoughts of the conference on social media today. You can do this by using our hashtag Retina UK Conf 24 and tagging our social media accounts. Our social media handles were on the screen at the beginning of the day today, but all of our accounts are called @Retina UK, so they're very easy to find. Please do share your thoughts and highlights throughout the day. We welcome your questions throughout the day also. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand during the Q&A sessions and we'll bring the microphone to you. You can also write your questions on a card and pass them to Matt, who is just sat with a laptop at the back of the space. He's waving his arms right behind us, you can see him. If you just write your question on that card throughout the day and hand them to him, we'll make sure they get answered. For online participants, you can use the Q&A section rather than the chat function to submit your questions, and our team will relay them to you. If we don't get to your questions today, we'll follow up after the event. For those joining online, we please ask that you change your name to that of your full name. This is so we can easily identify you when applying your CPD accreditation, and it helps when answering questions. We've worked really hard to have the conference accredited by the CPD office today. To qualify, you must stay for the full duration of the conference. For those online, this is why your screen name is really important. We issue 5.5 CPD hours for today's events, and we'll be emailing you after the event with that accreditation. Now for some housekeeping for the wonderful guide dogs that are in the room. Should they need to spend, the doors have been open at the side of the exhibition space. So as you enter the space, directly to your left, there's a double door. You just open that double door and there's a grassed area, which is where the dogs can go. Throughout the sessions, if you find that your dog needs to spend, Retina UK staff are more than happy to help so you don't miss anything. Just raise your hand and a staff member will come over. Finally, a huge thank you to the wonderful Retina UK staff and volunteers who have worked hard behind the scenes and are here to help support today's event. Without them, this conference really wouldn't have been possible. Thank you again for joining us today. Enjoy today and don't hesitate to ask lots of questions. Now it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome to the stage Retina UK CEO, Tina Garvey.
Good morning, thanks Lauren, and I don't know if some of you might know this is Lauren's first year with us and I think she's done an incredible job, so thanks so much Lauren. So welcome. So every year I kind of look back on my speeches that I make at the beginning and I thank everybody for the endurance test that the rail system gives them, and it turns out that this year is absolutely no different. But since 2018, when we first started our professionals conference, it was part of an initiative to support those who support our community. And more of you dedicated, motivated and accomplished people have joined us to learn more about this rare group of conditions, how it affects families, and I think most tellingly, how to support to the best of your ability. We have a full range of professions with us today, from ECLOs to clinical fellows and practitioners, rehab workers, QTVIs, optometrists, physicians and teachers, and this broadens more every year. In fact, around 3,500 professionals now engage with Retina UK, and this is something that I'm totally in awe of, and I thank you. And for our part, I commit that we will do everything in our power to make sure you have as much information and much help as possible from us at Retina UK to do your jobs. We have listened, and we have launched our Professionals Pack, which you will have a copy of. This is specifically designed for all of you to keep a copy of in the format that you requested. It's rammed full of accurate, peer-reviewed information so you can have a reliable tool to help in your efforts every day. And we've got an incredible agenda for you to enjoy today. So first up after me will be Denise, our wonderful Head of Information and Support, Bhavini Makwana from BAME Vision and Helen Doyle from the RNIB, and they're going to lead a discussion on how we can enable families to get the right information, support and advice that they need to live the best lives at all stages of their sight loss journey. Our panel of lived experience volunteers and service users will then explain the positive impact peer-to-peer support has had on their lives. And after that, we have Matthias, who's going to be exploring some of the outcomes of an in-depth study on the impact of RP on patients and his family members. And Matthias is a Deputy Clinical Research Nurse Manager at Oxford Eye Hospital and has some brilliant insights. And finally, we have three amazing speakers that will join me on the stage. Bhavini, again. Bhavini's going to need some carbs at lunchtime. We're going to get through it, Bhavini, we'll be fine. Terry Ballon from the RNIB and Stephen Kill from Seeability, and two Seeability champions, Joanne Kennedy and Rebecca Lunas, will be offering practical advice on how you can offer inclusive services for people with inherited sight loss across the board. Like Lauren, I do this every year as well, I'd like to thank the incredibly hard-working staff team at Retina UK, of which we now have a 33% lived experience representation. We are a small team, but they always produce excellent results within both our research domains and our community services. So I really want to thank all of you guys for the amazing job that you do. Today wouldn't be possible without our sponsors and exhibitors. So as Lauren has already asked you to, please take a chance to go and speak to them. And of course, a special mention to our funders, Johnson & Johnson and Ocuvision. Like you, we are steadfast in our vision to improve lives where we can. And Retina UK does this by striving for a choice of treatments in the future and being of service to the community. And this is going to be reflected in our third Insight survey, which is being undertaken in next spring in 2025. Please, can you help us have the best information by promoting this to the families living with the condition when they come across your door? Our Insight commitment ensures that we continue to represent the community and fulfil activity that has positive impacts on their lives every day. So please speak to any of the Retina UK team. We are quite a friendly bunch anyway, with any feedback or even a funny anecdote or joke will do. I'm also delighted to welcome our brand new chair, Cathy Evans, with us today. So please find time to say hello, and if you'd like an introduction, please grab any of the members of staff. So all it's left to me to say is thank you all so much for your commitment and motivation in this area. I hope you have a fantastic day, and the staff are here to help, so please just shout anytime. But have a great day. Thank you very much.
We now move on to our first session. One key project that Retina UK has been working on in collaboration with RNIB and other sector partners is the eye care support pathway. Those who attended last year may recall that Rob Cooper from RNIB explained the reasoning behind the work and how it's coming together. We're glad to be able to say that the eye care support pathway is now up and running. We are very pleased to be joined today by Helen Doyle, RNIB's Strategic Engagement Manager working closely with the NHS. Helen is here to talk to you about the pathway and how you can use it in your everyday work. We will also be joined by Bhavini Makwana, who will talk about her own experience, and Denise Rawden, our Head of Information and Support, who will talk about the role Retina UK plays in the pathway. Can we please welcome them to the stage?
Hello. Helen, if you'd like to start, Bhavini, should we take a side seat until we are needed? Come forward.
Thanks, Denise, and thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about the eye care support pathway. My name is Helen Doyle. I work for RNIB as Strategic Engagement Manager to the NHS, and have been working on the development of the eye care support pathway for the last couple of years. Some of you in the room may already know a little bit about it, but I'm going to assume that some of you don't, so I'll give a little bit of a whistle-stop tour about how we got to where we are. So I'm sure many of you in the room today recognise the enormous pressure that the NHS and social care are under. Ophthalmology is the largest specialty in the NHS, with a huge volume of people going through eye clinics every day. Eye care makes up 15% of the total waiting list in the NHS. Somebody diagnosed with glaucoma and other eye conditions are probably similar will have 112 outpatient appointments on average in their lifetime, and I'm sure people with inherited sight loss will similarly attend many, many appointments. I was recently at a talk where an NHS executive talked about their father-in-law who has an eye condition, and when he broke down the length of time in each appointment that he has and what has to be covered within that appointment from the clinical point of view, he worked out that he only gets to spend 0.01% of that time to actually talk about his condition and ask questions and talk about support that might be available, which really I think highlights the pressures the system is under. There's always another patient and too little time. Research has found that on the whole, people are satisfied with the clinical and medical care that they receive. However, we also know that when someone has an eye health condition and/or is partially sighted or blind, it's often extremely difficult to access, let alone get the right eye care information, advice and support. It's widely recognised that clinical eye care pathways are difficult to navigate and that there is no one consistent pathway of support. So, almost 3 years ago, RNIB held an event with key organisations working in eye care called See the Future Differently, and one of the main areas of focus was thinking about the concept of no diagnosis without support. And at that event, speakers from across the sector talked about the following: true collaboration can bring true success, that the needs of the patients need to be built into the design of services, that there was a need for an inclusive and fair eye health pathway, that unless something changes, nothing will change, and that there's a need to believe that change is possible, that nothing can be done without hope and confidence, and that we need to be determined, courageous and bold. And so that's what we did. We took all that, and RNIB kind of managed the process. We led on it, but it is absolutely a collaboration across the eye care sector. We recognised that although we may not be able to change the way NHS eye care services are delivered, although we do also work with the NHS on system changes, that what we could do was play a role in bringing together organisations across the sector to work together to produce an eye care support pathway, to enable better support for adults with eye care needs to be consistently delivered across the UK. More than 500 people with lived experience have been consulted. 50 key personnel across the sector were engaged, and 30 of our leading eye care bodies were represented. So I would say the eye care support pathway is firmly rooted in people's experience of living with eye care needs or working with and supporting people with eye care needs. And during the research and development of the pathway, we found the following. So navigating the pathway is complex and confusing for patients. Support is not person-centred or triggered automatically or built into all pathways. Support that does exist is not evenly distributed across the pathway. Inaccessible communications, which I'm sure some of you will be familiar with. Sometimes poor communications between the different professional groups working across the pathway. Difficulty for people in finding local provision and peer support. An inconsistency and a lack of value sometimes around low vision services. Confusion around the certificate of vision impairment process and registration. Waiting causes worry and stress, and a lack of clarity on process. Overall, we identified over 100 pain points, 109 to be exact, that people experienced across our existing eye care pathways and services. Now, we worked really closely with Retina UK on this work. They were one of the key organisations that supported us with this work, and many people with inherited sight loss and retinal conditions were involved in the consultation work. And they had quite specific feedback and highlighted specific support requirements which were unique to them. So I've just got a couple of quotes which I'd like to share with you which highlight this. So one person spoke about first being told of their suspected eye condition. And they said, "It was a very traumatic experience because I'm being told something is wrong, you need to be referred to Moorfields, but there was no kind of clear information. It does have a profound impact on your mental health and it's not known where to go. I think you just want information so you can find out what is going to happen to you. You're kind of thrown in at the deep end of something's wrong, but not given anything else from that, so you have no one to talk to. You don't really know what you're dealing with, and it has a profound impact, and I think that is traumatising for so many people." Other people with inherited sight loss talked about the importance of support at diagnosis and the value of peer support. So another person said, "Face-to-face support with others in similar situations is very important. I didn't know anyone with a VI, visual impairment, previously. Connecting with others has given me more confidence. I have learnt through examples of how other people tackle various issues. When first diagnosed, people need information and support, maybe counselling, to help them prepare for losing their sight. It would be useful to talk to people who have already been through it and are living well to show that it can be done. People need to prepare and get ready for what is to come." And somebody else said, "Peer support groups help people who are in that black hole and have had the rug pulled from under their feet." So pretty powerful sort of stories we heard. People with inherited sight loss and retinal conditions also specifically reference the need for information on genetic testing and access to research and clinical trials, which may be relevant to their condition. We also know that an area of support which has been historically neglected is emotional support, with treatment and support for eye conditions focusing on the physical impacts of sight loss or changes in eye health. And there really needs to be greater recognition of the emotional impact. That's from the beginning of a person's initial appointment through to diagnosis and living with an eye condition. What we heard so often is that when people do get access to support and information, it is absolutely transformational in how they're able to deal with their diagnosis and any impact that that might have on their sight. So another person said to us, "When I got to see an eye care liaison officer, it was like a whole block of concrete came off me." So once we had our evidence base, we were able to map what people's support requirements would be at each stage of a typical eye care journey. We recognise absolutely that the eye care support pathway is a streamlined summary of what we know can be a very complex journey for patients. However, we needed to pull the framework together to really get the message out there to highlight people's support needs. And I noticed Tina mentioned there's QTVIs and teachers in the room. This pathway is focused on adults with eye care needs. Guide dogs are currently working on a similar pathway for children and young people. So keep your eye on that because I believe that's going to be launched in the next few months. So ultimately, our ambition for the work is that from the moment someone realises that something isn't quite right with their sight, through to diagnosis and being able to live confidently and independently with their condition, that people have access to the support, information and advice that they need. And so we were able to come up with a visual representation of the eye care support pathway, which I'm sharing on screen now. So on the screen there is a diagram, which I will describe. It's an infographic. There's a title, Eye Care Support Pathway. Underneath the title is a subheading, which says, supporting you at every stage of your journey. And then underneath, the graphic shows the 4 stages of an individual's journey. Stage 1, having my initial appointment. Stage 2, having my diagnosis confirmed. Stage 3, support after my diagnosis. And Stage 4, living well with my condition. Each of the stages are linked together with a line, and in between each of them is text saying waiting well, which highlights there are often periods of waiting from one stage to the next, and people also need support during those periods. At the centre of the diagram, there is a depiction of a person to highlight that the pathway model is absolutely person-centred. They are always at the centre of this. Then underneath the person, there's a line which links to 3 key support requirements for each stage of someone's journey. So people want to understand their eye care journey, they want to understand their diagnosis, and they want to be able to access practical and emotional support. So this graphic has been used as we move forward to implementation, and it gives us a simple way to conceptualise the pathway. In November last year, we published an eye care support pathway report, a document for professionals, which described what effective support looks like, how to integrate support into clinical pathways, and how we're all working together to integrate support into eye care, improve outcomes, and ultimately transform people's experiences of eye care. So I'm showing another slide now, which shows the logos of 23 organisations who endorse the pathway report. So these are across eye care. They include the Royal College of Ophthalmologists, the College of Optometrists, the Royal College of Nursing, the Clinical Council for Eye Care Commissioning, the main primary eye care representative bodies and national and local charities, of course including Retina UK. And it's really a reflection of the support there is across eye care for this piece of work and how we can work together across the sector to improve outcomes for people with eye care needs. And we hope that this will ensure better person-centred eye care services with increased engagement and understanding of every stage of a person's eye care journey. So, next steps. We now have a version of the pathway for people with eye care needs and their family, friends and carers, which we launched last week. So it's new to the stands. It's available on our website, and I'll share a link to that at the end. We hope this resource will empower people themselves, if they have an eye care diagnosis, to have all the information in one place so they know what is available and, crucially, how to access support they may need at each stage. We know much of the support available already exists across the pathway, but people don't always know about it and sometimes find out by accident and often very late in their journey. And someone recently described their work as an ECLO, eye care liaison officers, providing a life jacket or a raft to someone kind of at that stage where they feel like they're drowning. And they shared with me that they saw this piece of work as actually giving them the information on how to swim and swimming alongside them, so avoiding needing to save their life in a way further downstream. So we hope the impact will be providing people with the information and support from the outset that they need to navigate their eye journey. We're also working to ensure clinical pathways incorporate the key support requirements, as we all need all clinical pathways to embed it. So it's a matter of course, really, rather than hit and miss, a bit like Macmillan have done with cancer services. And we're working with Retina UK to develop a retinal pathway. So that is another really positive piece of work. So how can you work to implement and utilise the pathway in your roles and organisations? Well, one of the ways you can do this is by sharing a letter, which has recently been sent to all NHS trusts and integrated care boards across England from Louisa Wickham, the Clinical Director for Eye Care. I'm going to read what she says in the letter because I think it's worth reading out because it's pretty powerful stuff. And it's an open letter, as I say, which has been published on the NHS England website. Louisa says, I'm writing to express my support for the eye care support pathway and to encourage all stakeholders in the eye care sector to support and, where possible, adopt this pathway, as it represents a significant advancement in our ongoing efforts to enhance eye care services across England. As the National Clinical Director for Eye Care at NHS England and as a practising clinician, I have witnessed firsthand the need for patients to receive support along their eye care journey. The eye care support pathway addresses this need head-on. It provides essential comprehensive support at 4 key stages of that journey. By integrating non-clinical support into existing eye care pathways, we can ensure that patients receive not just medical treatment, but also the support and guidance they need at every step. This pathway is the result of extensive collaboration with health and social care professionals, individuals with lived experience and sight loss, the third sector and professional bodies from across the eye care sector. The pathway not only meets immediate patient needs, but also aims for long-term improvements in eye care delivery, mental health support, falls prevention and employment, benefiting both UK individuals and the UK economy. So I think, you can use that as a bit of kind of evidence that this is supported at the highest level. Other ways you can support this work are to visit the eye care support pathway pages on the RNIB website, where both the professional and patient-facing versions of the report can be downloaded. They set out so clearly what people's support requirements are at each stage. Also within your consultations, give people that information, give them information about Retina UK, let them know about the eye care support pathway booklet, signpost and refer them. They trust you and you might not have the time necessarily, but we do. And one of the main messages, I think, is to always remember the 3 things people want to know at every stage, so that you can ask yourself in every interaction, does this patient understand their eye care journey? Do they understand their diagnosis? And do they know how to access emotional and practical support? And if you can tick off those, then you've kind of covered the 3 principles that we identified in the pathway. So we're looking forward to moving forward together across the eye care sector to really implement this fully and the exciting next steps to come. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Bhavini Makwana, and I'm going to talk about my experience of what the pathway actually outlines. So I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa at the age of 17, and prior to that, I was experiencing symptoms such as bumping into a lot of things like lampposts and bollards and people just appearing next to me and not really knowing they were there until they said something, which used to give me a shock. Missing steps, falling over quite a bit, dropping things and not being able to find them. The glare from the sun just used to be so bright and used to cloud my vision. And I just thought it was kind of stress. And, I was at college and, exams coming up and it will pass. But actually, I went to my local optician, didn't really say anything to me and referred me to my local eye hospital. And months and months and months of tests, again, had no idea. So when we talk about the pathway, having that initial appointment, I didn't really know what was going on or what all these tests were doing, looking into these bright lights and the visual field test. Now I know what it's called. I had no idea. So when it got to the point, and this was approximately 8-9 months later, from that time the optician referred me, I had my initial diagnosis, and all I remember that the consultant told me was, I have RP, retinitis pigmentosa. There is nothing that they can do. There's no treatment, there's no cure, and basically I could lose my sight in a matter of years, months, or it could be even weeks. And that was literally it. I still remember to this day, 27 years ago, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I couldn't believe it was 27 years ago. But that vision, sitting in that dark, cold room, still haunts me, still stays with me. And those words still stay with me. And that was literally my diagnosis. So having my diagnosis confirmed literally scared the hell out of me. It changed my life to think that I would wake up one day, maybe I could be walking down the street, I could just lose my sight in a matter of weeks, according to the consultant, and there was nothing anyone could do. So I didn't get signposted to any kind of help, support, local services, emotional, practical support, not even for my mum, who used to attend all the appointments with me, and I was kind of left to deal with it on my own, or not deal with it, because I think I was in shock, I was in denial, I didn't really understand. So where we talk about in the pathway understanding your diagnosis, I didn't understand that. I couldn't even say the word retinitis pigmentosa to begin with. I've never even heard of it. I'd never met anyone with sight loss before. I just knew that I was going to wake up one morning, lose my sight. I cancelled my UCAS application, so I didn't pursue education. I lost a lot of friends because they all wanted to go out and do things that were pretty much in the dark or in dim lighting. Things like theatres, cinemas, going out to eat, bowling, laser quest. Like I mentioned, 17, so we were turning 18, so a lot of people driving, wanted to go clubbing, wanted to go to bars, all of which I couldn't join them with because I was scared, I was frightened, that I didn't really want to tell anyone about because I didn't know what they were going to think of me. So for the next few years, I just stayed at home. My mom encouraged me to go out all the time, so we had a deal. If she came out with me, that's the only time I would leave the house. Fast forwarding many, many years, I met a boy, a guy. Now my husband, who helped me on the stage. But he was the first person outside my family that I told about my eye condition, and it was him that actually researched my condition. But again, even though what he was telling me, I didn't really accept at that point. I think I just wanted to go away. But RP is one of those conditions that it constantly deteriorates, and you don't know when or how. So when you've got to that bit where you're just managing, you're just coping, you go through it all again because you've lost a little bit more peripheral sight, eventually central. So now I only see light and dark. I've got no vision at all anymore. But along those years, so that's taken 27 years to where I am now. But it deteriorated when I had both my daughters. I've got 2 girls, but nobody ever told me that could be a possibility. And I struggled so much each time, like, simple tasks like taking them to school. I couldn't find the school gate. I used to play a little game with them when they were a little bit old enough to see if they can help me find the school gate, find their little entrance to their nursery reception, then into infants through to juniors. I didn't have that bond with the other parents because, we'll be in a group 1 minute talking and they've moved away and I'll be there chatting away and I had no idea they've gone. So even in the school playground, I was like, oh, there's that crazy lady again talking to herself. And, I remember an experience where one child held my hand and I was about to turn around and walk off until my mom started screaming at me to tell me that's my child, but I had no idea. And, the worst thing for me, I remember, is trying to go back home after dropping them to school. I couldn't even find a safe place to cross the road. I used to pretend I'd be on the phone, but really, I'd be trying to figure out how do I cross that road. Finding my road and then walking into that road to try and find my house. A simple thing like coming back from dropping my kids to school used to take me literally hours sometimes because I just couldn't find my front door. And when I did finally find it, I used to just break down thinking that I can't even do this. And sometimes I'd lay there until 3 o'clock and it was time to pick them up again. I could go on and on about all the struggles I went through. But what I want to highlight is the importance of this pathway. And, I was so proud to accept the role of chairing the pathway group. And some members are here today who helped shape the pathway today because it was developed by people with lived experience. And we wanted to make sure that nobody has to face the struggles that we did. I didn't get any help or support or signposting to any services. And it was by accident. It was by accident that my husband saw a poster at my annual eye clinic appointment that had the word Retina UK. Back then it was called RP Fighting Blindness and Retinitis Pigmentosa on there. So we went along to that event and found out everything that Retina UK were doing. And it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I could finally breathe because I was speaking to people my age with my condition that were mums, that we could just sort of share tips and experience how each other the challenges that we were facing, how can we tackle them, and just learning off each other just made a massive difference to me. So the stages that I'm talking about, having your diagnosis confirmed, support after your diagnosis, and living well with your condition. Living well with my condition came approximately 15 years after my diagnosis. And it was thanks to Retina UK that actually helped me get where I am today. You know, I believed that I would never get married. I would never be able to have children. I thought I'd never work again. There were lots of things, you know, I couldn't drive. You know, I always had an ambition that I want a red Lamborghini. And that dream was taken away from me, that I would never drive. But actually, thanks to peer support, I learnt about blind driving experiences, and I did get to drive a Lamborghini. It wasn't red, it was black, but who cares? But there are so many things that vision impaired people can do and should do. But if you don't know about the help and support out there, if you don't speak to other people living with sight loss, how are you ever going to know that support? So I'm not going to talk about all the things that I do now, but I'm one of the ambassadors for Retina UK. I volunteer for Retina UK. I've got a full-time job. And that's thanks to people who not only had belief in me, but believed me to show me that actually it can be done with the right adaptations and help and support. So one thing I do urge is this pathway is like I said last week in another conference, like a holy book. Please just tell as many people, all the patients, all the clients that you're seeing about it, because they may not be ready to accept that help and support at that time, but they may be a few months, a few years down the line. And if they don't even know about it, then they're never going to be able to know about it. So, and I emphasize that point because I always get told I was hard to reach. I wasn't hard to reach. I attended my annual appointments every single year. There were missed opportunities that I could have learnt about, but I wasn't shown. So I'd like to just say thank you, and please do read the eye care support pathway and tell as many people about it as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavini, for sharing your experience. Nobody should have to go through the pain points that Bhavini did for 15 years without any support. The positive is that, for the last 11, 12 years that you've embraced that support. You've moved from accepting support from Retina UK. You've gone on to provide support through your volunteering. You found strength, confidence, and the abilities, focusing really on the abilities of all you can do, and my God, that's a lot. I mean, when we think about what you do, you never stop, Bhavini, everything from, your job, so it's campaigns and project manager at Thomas Pocklington Trust, founder and chair of BAME Vision, and not forgetting, yes, of course, you're one of our ambassadors and leader of the London and South East Peer Support Group. I have to say the sector would be much poorer if it wasn't for you being in it, I have to say. So we've heard about Bhavini's pain points, and we really want to make sure that in the future for people, those pain points are avoided. Everybody in the room and online is here because you care, because you support people with inherited retinal dystrophies, and you want to learn more about how you can do that better. And together we've really got an opportunity to change the experiences that people have throughout their sight loss journey for the better, at whatever stage in the pathway that they're at, so that the experiences that Bhavini and many other like her are a thing of the past. But the great news is that this is a simple idea that, as Helen said, there are already lots of fabulous services out there. They're already available. They already exist. We're not trying to reinvent everything from scratch. The pathway's there to help ensure that people hear about the support that's available to them. There's lots of fabulous organisations out there that you can refer to. So where do Retina UK actually fit in? Today, for the next, well, actually, no, for the whole day, of course, I want you to think specifically about people with inherited progressive sight loss and why that's different. At Retina UK, we're able to focus all our efforts specifically on this group. We've got a wealth of experience and insight from working really closely with affected families, and that's through focus groups, our insight surveys that Tina mentioned earlier, talking to our service users, and through our lived experience panel. We use the information that they provide to us to drive the charity forward, providing services and support that our community tell us that they want and need. Now let's consider the journey of somebody with an inherited retinal dystrophy and the stages that they might encounter. So diagnosis, first of all. You know, it could be that there's family history that run right through the family for many generations, and it could be that somebody is just fearful of that diagnosis. Perhaps they've been frightened of getting that diagnosis for some time. There's others with no family history that they're aware of, and the diagnosis can come as a complete shock. But either way, it's a really challenging time emotionally. And sadly, we know that if that's not handled well at that time, it has really long-lasting impacts, as you've heard from Bhavini. It's a time when people really need our support. They need to know that they're not alone. They need to have a place to ask questions that they think of, because let's face it, that's not always in the consultation room. As they think of them, there's a safe place that they can call and ask questions, and also offload their anxieties when they get too much. The next stage is keep calm and carry on. And a lot of people, I think Bhavini mentioned that she went into denial. And people just really want things to stay as they are for as long as possible, and that's absolutely understandable. Sometimes people aren't affected, you know, that their sight isn't impacted that badly because it's a progressive condition. Or it's possible that it is, but they choose to hide it even from those closest to them. But there comes a point of impact, which is the next stage. This is a really challenging time, and it's a time when someone's sight loss has progressed to a point where it impacts their daily life and they just can't hide it anymore. It's a common and extremely emotional impact. It's so difficult for people. It can be practical impacts such as losing a driving license. That's massive. The emotional and practical impact of that is absolutely huge for people. Others can be struggling to go out, losing confidence going out, particularly at night as their sight deteriorates in dim lighting. Or perhaps they've started to struggle reading. But there's also the emotional impacts, such as worrying whether you can continue in your job. Is that the right thing to do for you? Are you going to see your children grow up? Is that something that is playing on your mind? It's a time that's really challenging, but we know that that peer-to-peer support at that point makes a massive difference. And the next stage is coming out. And that's really when people start to engage with and adapt to their sight loss. Perhaps they feel ready to start exploring low vision aids, for example, perhaps accessing mobility training. It's maybe when they start to accept that there are other services out there that could be really helpful to them. And they decide maybe now is the time to pick up the phone. And that leads them into the new normal. New normal is readjusting to the changes, getting used to things, growing in confidence again, learning to live their life confidently and independently. But for those with our conditions, it's not a linear process. People live in progressive sight loss. As Bhavini said, they go through those stages many times. Just as you've learned to adapt and got to a new normal, there's often another point of impact somewhere on the horizon. Now, these stages might sound familiar to you because Dr. Mary Thurston, who's a lead lecturer in counselling for Abertay University, she devised these stages, and they resonate particularly with our community, but anybody with sight loss. Mary herself is living with RP. The journey raises so many challenges for families, both practical and emotional. The inherited nature of the conditions can bring guilt and blame. The progressive nature can bring uncertainty and fear. Our insight surveys that we carried out with our community in both 2019 and 2022 showed that over 90% of respondents, and there were almost 1,000 people who responded, had experienced a negative impact to their mental health as a result of their diagnosis. Anxiety, loss of confidence, and isolation were the main factors. They also showed that those families who had engaged with Retina UK were less likely to experience those feelings. I'm just going to read a quote. Since my diagnosis of retinitis pigmentosa 4 years ago, I've reached out to Retina UK several times, and I've always been moved by their compassion and understanding towards the visually impaired community. After completing their new Discover Wellbeing programme, I'd love the opportunity to give back to the charity that has helped me and so many others in our day-to-day lives. That was really nice feedback. Now, our Discover Wellbeing is a service of which we're really proud. It's relatively new, developed just a couple of years ago, as a direct result of feedback from our survey that we carried out in 2022, and an additional piece of survey work that we did with our community, specifically around the impacts of living with inherited progressive condition on their mental health. Now, Helen mentioned the importance of emotional support, and that's what people said they needed. So, a member of your community said that people need to prepare and get ready for what's to come. Discover Wellbeing was developed to encourage open conversations about emotional health alongside the physical impacts of living with inherited sight loss. Nobody can think that having a diagnosis where you're told that your sight is going to get worse to the point where you're going to go blind and there's nothing that anybody can do about it is not going to have a massive impact on your mental health. But we didn't want to recreate all the fabulous services that are out there that offer counselling services. They're really good. But we also recognised that waiting times are long. So we wanted to do something that was more about early intervention, preparing people for what's to come. So we developed the online courses that are Discover Wellbeing. We have a course for people who are very early in their journey. Perhaps they haven't even been diagnosed yet. They're in that fear stage, or they've just been diagnosed. We have another course for people that are further into their journey. Perhaps they're experiencing point of impacts. And there's always one for you, supporting others. The course is actually accredited as well for professionals. So if you haven't had a look, please do get on there. The feedback has been really good. Please get on there and have a go at actually doing the course. Now, Helen also mentioned that people with inherited sight loss and retinal conditions also specifically reference the need and importance of genetic testing. Now, worryingly, when we did our survey in 2019, our community told us many of them just had never been offered a genetic test or genetic counselling, particularly if they were diagnosed some time ago. A lot of them didn't even realise they were eligible. They thought it was irrelevant to them. Now, this is an NHS service that's free of charge, and it's available to everybody that's got an inherited retinal dystrophy. Yet, remember there were almost 1,000 people who responded to that survey. Only 15% of them were able to tell us their genetic diagnosis. Genetic testing and genetic counselling can help people to have their diagnosis confirmed. It can help them better understand their condition and answer questions about why they're affected. It can be a really positive experience for families, and it's certainly them that should be making the decision as to whether they go ahead with it or not anyone else. We developed Unlock Genetics resource. Again, it's a section on our website that we involved community in developing, but it helps people to understand what genetic testing and counselling is, the benefits and the limitations of the service, and how to access it. It provides a list of all the clinics, the specialist clinics around the country, and even there's a letter on there that people can print and take to their GP, because we know some of them are a little reluctant to do those referrals. It provides them with information for them to decide, is this the right thing for me and my family? Helen spoke about people needing to connect with others. And it's apparent whenever we work with our community, their desire to connect with other people with the same or similar conditions. People they can relate to. People who belong to the same tribe. A quote that we received recently from a relatively new member of our community, said, "Retina UK has changed my life after contacting them for support due to me battling depression. I needed a community that understood me and my inherited sight loss. This community has now been found. Advice and real understanding are two things that the peer support groups have given me, and a true sense of belonging." That's what we do. Our helpline and talk and support service and our local groups, both in person and online, they offer that all-important peer-to-peer support. Our volunteers are as broad as the community we represent. They provide that connection. They've experienced similar anxieties and struggles. They can share hints, tips, and coping strategies and show people that they're not alone. They found ways of continuing to do the things that they enjoyed. Or perhaps they found new activities that they really love. Now, it's a really positive experience. Another quote was, "The first chance I ever got to meet someone like me was at a local group. It wasn't until I was in my 20s, I can't believe I'd been without it for so long. I can't fully express what a relief it was to know that I was part of a tribe and that others had experience and wisdom that could benefit my life so greatly. These people just got me. Nobody else had understood before. I felt so accepted. It was a massive confidence boost at a time I really needed it." Now, we never forget the impacts on the wider family. We're here to support the person that's affected and any family member. We support parents who are sometimes racked with guilt at passing on a condition that they didn't even know they had. Parents are so wrapped up in anxiety because have they passed on the condition? They're looking for any little sign that it's there in their children. Or so worried about their children who are affected that they become so protective and they really struggle to allow their children to have a carefree childhood. We support the families that are in denial and won't talk about the condition that's run through their family for generations. And we support and inform those desperate to hear about the latest research and how they can get involved in clinical trials. Now, research is a thing that's been part of our organisation for as long as we've existed. We fund and accelerate medical research into inherited retinal conditions. We're passionate about facilitating engagement between our community and the research world. Many of our families have got an eye on the future for their children and future generations. We keep our community updated on condition-specific research. Tomorrow, our community is going to hear from an eminent professor in the area. Professor Graham Black is here to talk to our community and answer their medical research questions, along with some of our PhD student grantees about the latest work that they're doing. Our lived experience panel that I mentioned earlier, that enables people to have a voice, represent the inherited retinal community through activities like focus groups, surveys and research projects, sometimes directly with pharma. So as you've heard, there's lots of issues that are specific to the inherited progressive sight loss conditions that we cover. The services we've developed are there to address the anxieties of these families. We can inform, we can listen, we can guide, and we can support and link them with others that have been there, done it, and who can share their experience and unique insight. From waiting well pre-diagnosis, through to supporting families after diagnosis and through each deterioration, Retina UK can help support people as they learn to live well with their condition. But the pathway can't work for our community without you, everybody here in this room and online. We need you to be able to tell them what support is available to them, how to access the free services that we offer and that we can certainly deliver at their point of need. We're asking this of you, and in return, we've actually developed something that you asked us for. As you arrived this morning, you were given an information pack, a nice big black shiny folder. Those of you online will have received an online information pack. Just as we do when we develop any new service, we involve our community. We ask them what needs to be in there, what they want and need, and we've done exactly the same with you, our professional colleagues. We asked you through focus groups last year, through surveys, what we could do to better support you. We listened to what you told us, and one of the key things was that you wanted information, both for yourselves and to give out to families. You didn't want reams of it all over clinics or in the offices because you haven't got the space. You just wanted some simple information. We listened and we developed. So the pack that you've got has lots of information in there. There's information in there about Retina UK and our services. There's information about the conditions that we cover. We haven't provided a leaflet on each one. We've kept a nice information sheet, simple and easy to access. We've also got our leaflet, copies of our leaflets in there, and copies of some posters if you choose and are able to put those up around the place. At the back of each document that you've got in there, there's a Navilens QR code. So people can access it in whatever form they want. So if you want to scan the code and go straight to the website, you can print off information if you want the printed format, or you can look at it on your smartphone so people have got it available to them. We talked to ECLOs and lots of people said, actually, we're not allowed to have loads of leaflets around. Others said we really want them. So rather than bombard you with loads of stuff to carry and take away, because, you know, the bags get a bit heavy on your shoulder, don't they? So what we've done is put a copy of each in there, and there's an order form. You can let us know personally what is it that you want and need. Order any information that you need, or of course you can print it locally if that suits you better. We really want your feedback on this pack. We've developed it for you to use. If there's anyone in the room that has got one that thinks, actually, I'm not going to use this, we won't be offended. Honestly, please just hand it back so someone else can make use of it. There is also the online version. Now, what we've done is, as from today, there is a professionals area on our website specifically for you. And within that section, there is actually the electronic pack as well. So however you choose to access our information, it's there available to you in one place whilst you're talking to and supporting someone with inherited retinal condition. Please do let us know what you think of it. It's important that you give us feedback about anything in there that's missing, anything else that would be helpful, or any other information that you'd like us to know about. So what happens when you actually make a referral to Retina UK? We've told you why you should. What happens when you do? Well, first of all, we don't have long wait lists. No strict time constraints. We're going to contact the person you refer to us, usually the same day, always within 2 days. And once we've been in touch with them, spoken to them and matched them with a service that suits their individual needs, they can usually be accessing that service within a week, if that's the time frame that suits them. But importantly, we're going to come back to you. You need that feedback too. You need to know that that service exists and that we've taken care of that person for you. So we'll come back and give you the feedback that you need to. As an ECLO told me, Retina UK can offer something that patients need that I just can't offer. Being able to talk to somebody that's living with the condition. It's invaluable for me to know that I can give out your number and whenever they need it, you're going to be there. I'm going to finish with a final quote. Somebody who was referred to us by an ECLO recently, and we received this email in response. This is just 2 weeks ago. Thank you so very much for being there for me today and for everything that you've managed to put in place for me so far. Your volunteer contacted me this afternoon and she was so helpful. Her time and knowledge was so gratefully appreciated at this difficult time. Just having you there to help with any concerns or to answer any questions that I may have to help me going forward is a great comfort as myself and my husband try and navigate a path through this. I think you're going to be a huge strength in the future. Now that's the difference that we make. Everyone here has got a common aim, a common cause. We all want to do the very best that we can to support the outcomes for the families that we work with. I know that often work in health and social care and educational settings, you can get frustrated with the organisational constraints that are put on you, time limitations, red tape, it can all be difficult. And as charities, we really are here to help by working together. As a lean, smaller charity, Retina UK can react quickly, whether that's in supporting families that you refer to us or in identifying gaps in service provision. If you're finding that there are gaps that you're coming across, please do speak to us. Have confidence in Retina UK. We really do get stuff done. Thank you. Bhavini and Helen, so you come up to the stage. Bhavini? I'm just going to ask Helen and Bhavini to come back to the stage. If anybody has any questions at all, we've just got 5 minutes. And yes, of course, online as well, if there's any questions. Just one down at the front here. Devinda, if we're just going to bring the mic to you, Devinda.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much. So it's Devinda here, technology trainer and have RP myself. And I've been going through the situation for many years, but I'm curious about something. Having heard about the presentation Eye Care Pathway, adaptation is really important. It's a key skill that I think everyone needs to do. But I'm going to frame this, so bear with me. So if the framework you outline is the bone, I'd say services are the muscle. And I feel like the sector's atrophying. But what I mean basically is not enough resources. So if that's the case, what kind of work is happening in the sector, joined up or as individual charities, to make sure the actual face-to-face, human-to-human contact, because take technology as an example. I've challenged a lot of chief execs saying that technology support pathways should be in place and not everyone can get online. There's a barrier there because as soon as someone loses their vision, asking someone to go online is like asking a wheelchair user to go up some stairs. It doesn't work. So just curious, if you could let me know how the pathway can limit and give more impact for professionals and us to actually make that difference. Thank you.
So I think the pathway itself, when we launched the public-facing version last week, somebody actually said to us, its beauty is the fact that it's not actually trying to reinvent the wheel. So it doesn't require more resources to actually implement what the framework is suggesting, because we know the support already exists out there. It's not joined up enough. It's not joined up well enough to get people to the services and the support that they require. So what it does is it enables that framework to overlay. Obviously, as organisations, we're all looking to kind of work with systems to improve that side of things as well. So, for example, we've been doing some work within primary care, within opticians, to enable a direct referral to be made from that point into charities to support people early. So we're trying to do some sort of system changes as well, but the pathway itself doesn't require kind of extra money or extra funding. I'm not sure if that's exactly answering your question, but yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to just... Oh, the mic isn't working. I would probably say the question is more around, because systems, and I've done NHS background pathways, it's professionals are brilliant. We all know in the room that, take for example health and social care, the ECLO colleagues we talk to, most of us who have lived experience will tell you that yes, it's a whole cocktail of things that support people. I think what I'm trying to understand is how does if somebody in an NHS trust says, I just don't have the time, a consultant, the education, and somebody comes into a service and says, everybody keeps putting me in a pathway online or someone hasn't spent the time. I guess one of my challenges, what I'm hearing in the sector, is there's just not enough resources. There's a postcode lottery, there's not enough rehabs, And I guess the question is, how do we address that with the pathway?
I mean, it is a really good question. I think we're all aware of those challenges, and I think part of the research, you know, the evidence and the consultations was showing that sort of regional variation, the differences across, even within one trust, it can just vary enormously. And I think we're at the starting point of this work. I think, you know, our ambition, we're working at RNIB and across the sector to implement it in lots of different ways. So we've kind of taken the pincer approach, if you like, launching it to professionals first, now to patients, people with eye care needs. So we're also, as I mentioned in my talk, going to try and overlay clinical pathways. So each eye condition will have their own clinical pathway. What we're working towards is that will just become the norm, you know, so that actually professionals recognise that people have the support requirements and it becomes embedded. If it's in a clinical pathway, if it's there in black and white and they're following that, then it just becomes part of the norm. So I think, as I mentioned, in cancer services, nobody gets a cancer diagnosis now without getting that support from Macmillan. It just doesn't happen. So they have managed to achieve that, and we look to that as a kind of what we're aspiring for within eye care. So, but we are admittedly at the very early stages. There's, you know, we've just launched both reports and the work starts here really. Yeah.
The question online, I think, Matt? No. Another one in the room?
Good morning, and thank you for this initiative, and particularly to Bhavini for sharing your story. My name is Matthew Albert. I'm a drug discovery and drug developer. I work in San Francisco and really pleased to be here. My question, and I recognize that there's so much need, but my question is really about downstream opportunities and whether the Pathway Initiative also anticipates helping to connect people with clinical trial opportunities. And if there's any opportunity for biotech or industry to help collaborate with you in that regard, to make it possible as part of the pathway to get access to, you know, cutting-edge therapies that are being developed.
Yes, in a simple answer to your question. So very strongly, particularly from the consultations we did with the Retina UK groups, came out very strongly that people want to be informed about access to clinical trials. They, you know, obviously, it depends on each individual, but that was one of the areas that came through really strongly. It features in the support requirements, both in the professionals report and in the public-facing guide. So we've set out that as one of the key steps, that if someone has a condition, they should ask whether there are clinical trials. So the short answer, although it was a bit longer than just a yes, is yes. So please do get in touch if you think there would be opportunities we can work on.
I would agree, and please do stop by the stand. We have the team here that sort of look and support our research programme, so please do stop by and have a chat. I'll introduce you to the appropriate person. Any more questions? I think we just have time for one more.
Hi, I'm Alba, Echo in Oldham. I just have very practical questions, not so philosophical, sorry. They're just about the discovery well-being for professionals. How long would that take? Because we're all in busy clinics, and like, how long do we need to take aside to take it? Because I really, really want to take that course.
The nice thing is that it's in modules. So if you actually work your way through, there are 5 different modules, and all of them can be done. There's a small video. It's actually just talking. It's just a chap standing there speaking, so you're not missing anything if you can't see the video. But they each take about 10 minutes, and then there's exercises to do after each module, and it's the time that you put into those, I guess, that really makes a difference in terms of the outcome of the course. So I'd say probably about half an hour for each of the modules, but they can be done. We suggest they're done over a period of weeks, maybe one module a week.
That's great, thanks. And also, another practical question. I do refer a lot of people to genetic counselling, but then I'm thinking maybe I should, well, I don't refer, but I ask the doctors to refer. Maybe I should ask them to refer people to genetic testing first. Is there an order for that?
There isn't. It's absolutely individual. Some people prefer to have genetic counselling to start with because they can actually talk through what the benefits and limitations are and whether it's the right thing for them and their family. They can choose to go for genetic counselling again once they've got their results, so they understand the results that are coming through. So referring to genetic counselling first is absolutely fine.
Great, I've got just one really little one.
I'm getting told off from the back of the room that we're on time. Alba, can I ask you to come and speak to us on the stand
Of
at
course,
break
yeah,
time?
I'll do that. Thanks.
That's lovely. We're just going to go into a break now. So if you can be back, I think it's 15 minutes break. And if you can be back, please, at 11:45. All right. Thank you.